frigid wind wrapped around me. Not even my many layers were able to protect me from the sky's cold breath. As I sat in the eerie silence, I couldn't help but contemplate my life and my now seemingly imminent death. I had lived a good life. Even though I wish it had been longer, I had accomplished much. I had 2 beautiful kids and a handful of amazing grandkids. I would have liked to see them grow up, I thought, but I immediately pushed the thought aside. It does not do to dwell on that which cannot be changed. I found my thoughts suddenly drifting to Leadville, Colorado, and all the work I'd done there. I couldn't help but smile, despite my desperate situation. I looked around at my fellow Titanic passengers, the ones that had made it onto the lifeboats in time, and my weak smile quickly disappeared. It was impossible to ignore that the majority of my massive cruise companions were not on the lifeboats. I looked back down so suddenly that there was a throbbing pain in my neck. I again let my thoughts wander to Leadville. If I lived a million years, I would never be able to forget the sounds of Leadville. As soon as I walked off the train, my ears were overwhelmed with what I would soon know to be as the music of Leadville. The air was filled with the sound of mules and horses voicing their displeasure the only way they knew how, the men who tried in vain to calm them down, the hiss of the train whistle, and the beautiful song that drifted from the saloon, playing softly in the background. My brother Daniel stood on the platform smiling from ear to ear, and I found it impossible not to reciprocate the action. When we greeted him, he swept me up in a bear hug I hadn't experienced in almost 8 years. We walked through the packed streets, passing dance hall girls, men wearing worn-out plain clothes, and businessmen dressed to the nines. Although we had arrived with my sister and brother-in-law, I would be living with my brother Daniel. I got a job working for Daniels and Fisher Mercantile, sewing up carpets and draperies, while Daniel worked in the mines. Between the 2 of us, we could barely make ends meet, but it was a happy time, filled with new beginning and opportunity. In the early summer of 1886, almost a year after my arrival in Leadville, I met a man named James Joseph Brown. I was at a church picnic when I noticed a tall and handsome man smiling at me. I smiled back, and that was all he needed. We were soon courting. Although I dreamed of grandiose and wanted to marry a rich man who could provide me with the opportunity to give my parents some of the niceties they never achieved, I had fallen in love with JJ when I had first set eyes on him. Within a year, JJ and I were wed. Marrying for love may have been the best decision of my entire life. JJ may have been a simple miner, but he had the intelligence, passion, and ambition of a much wealthier man. After getting married, I moved into James's cabin, located in a small Irish town called Stumfordtown. After quitting my job, I had a lot of time on my hands, which I used to enhance my mind by taking private lessons. Together, James and I had 2 children, all within the first 3 years of our marriage. My first child was a boy, and we named him Lawrence Palmer. After his birth, we moved into a larger house in Leadville, where some of our other family members soon moved into as well. There, I gave birth to a second child in 1889, a beautiful baby girl we named Catherine Ellen. Although I loved spending time with my growing family, I also wanted to help people who weren't as lucky as I was. Because of the repeal of the Silver Act, unemployment in Leadville was at an all-time high, reaching 90%. So I started volunteering at a soup kitchen that helped struggling miners and their families. Soon after that, I joined a feminist society that was just starting up, the National Women's Suffrage Association. There, the women were kind and enjoyed having me because of my loud personality, not in spite of it. In that moment, I realized I had done something with my time on this planet. I knew I could have done more, and yearned for the chance to do that, but I was content, maybe even happy with what I had achieved. I had had a family, made amazing friends, and had made an impact on the world. Maybe I was ready after all. I stood slowly for fear of tipping the small boat. I needed to do something. It was torture sitting here contemplating my own death. The first words out of my mouth came quickly and a little slurred. In Missouri, when I was young, my brother and I had spoken quietly, but in the haunting silence it was enough to get the attention of most. I continued, regaling the group with tale after tale of my adventures in the Wild West. It wasn't much, but it was distracting enough to get a few laughs, and to me, that was the world.